All right. Hello, everybody. Here, I'm going to give it a second here and let everybody filter on in. I see everybody coming in. Yeah, this is going to be fun. I keep saying that to Elizabeth and Lindsay, but this really is going to be a good webinar. This is like a webinar in the making for like 2 years, I swear. It's going to be really great. But since we have some people rolling in here, I'm just going to take a drink of water and then I'm going to go ahead and dive in here. Okay, here we go. Welcome to this webinar. Super excited to have everybody here and really excited with our two amazing speakers here today as well that I'm going to introduce shortly. We're really excited. And I'm also, like I said, I am so looking forward to this topic of conversation today. It's just so crazy how every webinar that we have, whenever this topic comes up, we just want to sit on it for the rest of the time. So that's where like, let's just have a whole webinar about this. So it's going to be really awesome. And first of all, too, if anyone's new to this webinar, to quickly introduce myself, I am Stephanie Grice, and I'm the marketing and education coordinator here at Travefy. And I'm going to introduce our panelists in just a minute. But first, what I really wanted to do is just kind of first just explain Travefy Academy. If there is anybody, I always do this if there's ever anybody new to a Travefy Academy webinar. What we designed Travefy Academy for is it's really meant to be just a free educational resource to further, Travefy's mission to power the success of travel professionals. So these webinars are really just to help you in your business and help you succeed in your business. And I mean, this is a perfect example of that, of how can you make the business the best that it can be for you? So what really is we really hope that this webinar is just, a really helpful place to figure out, what's going to work best for your business. And we brought two panelists to share whether, having fees or not having fees and just what that looks like, what those business models are looking like, to give you some ideas, how you can make your business work the best that it can be as well. So it's just gonna be really cool. It's gonna be a really fun, interactive webinar and all that good stuff. But one thing to mention too, a couple housekeeping things before I forget, is that we are recording this. So if you have to hop off, feel free to check out our YouTube channel after this. Just give us a couple hours and we'll get that video up on YouTube so you can watch the recording for that. The other thing is, in your Zoom control panel, you'll see the question box, the question answer, and then the chat. So feel free to use both, because we really want this, again, to be a discussion amongst all of us on here. And so feel free to use that chat. We have Scott from the Travefy team in the end, and he's going to be helping to share things with me during that time, or as people are chatting. But then also utilize the question box, because we do hope to have time at the end for questions with our panelists today. So feel free to put those questions in there as well, and it'll kind of help filter it out. So please use both of those, and it'll just be really cool and really fun. But before I dive in to everything here, we have a lot to dive into. It's going to be great. We even have some data, which we came with some numbers to this webinar to start off with. But before I get into some of that data that I'm going to share on my screen, I do want to quickly introduce our panelists here today. And then we're going to learn a little bit more about their business in just a bit. But to start us off, here we go. Our panelist. I need a drum roll thing, which I'm gonna get one of these days. Got to get that. Is our first panelist is Elizabeth Quillacq, who is owner of Souvenir in Far. Welcome, exciting. And then we also have Lindsay Foerster, who is president and CEO of Foerster Travel. So we're super excited. Super excited to have both of them here today. And I know we're going to learn so much. You're going to take away so much knowledge, just so much expertise is going to come our way. So I'm really excited about that. But before we get the inside scoop on both of their businesses and how they model it, I first just want to look high level at some data. So let's talk about some data when it comes to charging fees within the travel advisor community. Here we go. This one's going to possibly blow people's minds. The first question is, do you charge a fee? And this is coming from the Travefy user survey that we just did. It's thousands of responses. And as you can see, it is dang near 50-50. And honestly, what's crazy about this is what we're seeing on other resources online. So we've looked at other resources and it is so much the almost the identical same here. Another thing that we've noticed is over the past couple years that yes of charging a fee is growing. So it's really interesting to see that, just to see the data. I mean, and this once we saw this, we're like, oh, of course we need to have this webinar because look at that. I mean, there's just so much around, what's working? Do you charge a fee? What works? Do you not? What are you doing that makes that work? And all of that stuff. So this is just a great example of why we are having this conversation. So really interesting there. But then when we start getting into, for those who are charging a fee, we were curious just what you called it. And we're going to talk about this later on too. But this was one of the questions on the registration for this webinar. And it looks like about 50% call it a planning fee. So we just thought that was really interesting. There's different ways, different terms, different models. And again, we'll discuss that. But we thought this was interesting to see, just to see what are other people calling it. And the other term, 21%, which I am super curious to know what the other terms are. So we might have to dig into that a little bit. But it was just really interesting, to see what people are just calling that. And then the final piece of data that I just want to share to just set us up here is how much are people charging for fees if they are charging for fees? And so it looks like the majority, well, not majority, but 39% was $50 to $100. And then as you can see, the 100 to 500 is like very similar. So a big range there, but very similar in there. And then there's, of course, the 500 to 1,000, smaller, and then under 1% were 1,000 and up. And this was, again, from our webinar registration. So it's just super interesting to see. Just data's fun, the numbers are interesting. So, I mean, this just shows you, again, this topic's really important, but here's where I'm really excited because you can see this data all the time. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to bring panelists in here to share their real life examples of how successful business models have worked both ways. So that's really what we're going to do. So, okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and panelists, are you ready? This is going to be fun. So I want to start off with our first question here. And Elizabeth, I'll let you go first here. So what I want to ask is, let me make sure I get the correct question. I don't jump ahead here. Can you first just give us a quick overview of how your current business model works?
Sure. So when I started my business about 5 years ago, I actually spent about a year figuring out what do people want. I talked to everybody from my kids' teachers to my doctor to my lawn guy. Do you use a travel agent? Yes, no. What are you looking for? And then I spent a lot of time talking to travel agents and asked them what they liked about their job and what they didn't like about their job. And overwhelmingly, what they didn't like about their job was invoicing, chasing commissions, dealing with all of that. And, somebody paid a commission, didn't pay a commission, total mess. And then from what my potential clients wanted, they didn't want a full service travel agent, the typical, they were looking for maybe a 2-hour consult or maybe a couple hours here and there. So I built my business based on what travel agents didn't like and what the client base was looking for. So I created a business and knowing that I had been traveling for so long, everybody was asking me for help planning their trips anyway, my friends, my neighbors. So I was already known as the travel person. So when I created my business, it was no surprise, but I created a business and I honestly didn't know that commission should play a part in my role. I really didn't. I was kind of naive and thinking, it's like your tutor, your kid's school tutor, you pay them an hourly fee. And so I didn't really even know that's what I should be doing. I just thought, well, I'm going to be working, so I'll charge a fee. And I created a business where I have 4 different things you can choose from. A 2-hour consult. So somebody might come to me and show me their itinerary and I'll go through it and figure out what works, what doesn't work. A kickstart, which is about 5 hours of work, and then a tier 1 and a tier 2. And a tier 1 is everything you need for your trip, but then you go and book everything yourself. And then a tier 2 is a typical, travel advisor where I do all the bookings for you. And I did that for a long time. It was working great. But my business got so big, I couldn't handle it. And I really needed a host. So I started looking for a host, found a great host. And then it was like, whoa, when I started meeting all my colleagues, I was like, wait, what do you do? And they were like, whoa, you're charging $2,000 to plan someone's trip. And I'm like, wait, you're working for free? I don't get it. And so I started to kind of figure out what they were doing. They were figuring out what I was doing. And I was learning about the whole world of, really being a true travel agent. And then the pandemic hit. So this is all, pre-pandemic. And when the pandemic hit, that's when it really hit me that, wow, some of my colleagues lost their homes because they weren't getting their commissions paid. And I don't want to sound insensitive, but the pandemic didn't affect my finances because my clients pay me my fee up front. And so it never, it didn't impact me in that way. Of course, I worked triple hours or whatever, but I watched my colleagues, suffer. And then as time went on, people realized that a fee really should be charged for your time. It's not, we shouldn't maybe put all our eggs in one basket for the commissions. And also, I think the pandemic really made people realize that working just for commissions, it's really a white knuckle ride. I mean, it's up and down. Oh my gosh, I'm going to earn $4,000 in commission. Oh, my client decided to book with their credit card points, so now I get nothing. Where I am a very high-strung person and I can't deal with those ups and downs. So by charging a fee, it levels it out for me. So, if my client decides they want to use credit card points, I can advise them whether that's a good idea or not. If it's a virtuoso property, I'm probably going to say don't do it because XYZ, it's better if you book through me. But if it's something else, and then sure, I feel like I have a lot more flexibility to help, when the commission is not playing in my mind, I don't have to worry about that. But I do, I have an IATA number, so I do generate commissions when it's appropriate. Like when I'm booking a hotel, it doesn't matter to my client if I get commissions or not, but I do donate my commissions. So like last year, I donated 100% of my commissions to Doctors Without Borders. And it's not because I'm a nice person. It's just because I really want to focus fees. And I don't want commissions muddying the waters or making me make different decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really, really cool. And I just think it's super interesting how you started out where it's you didn't know, like you're like, I thought this is just how this worked.
I know. I mean,
That's
I
so
figure
cool.
I pay my accountant,
Yeah.
I pay my accountant to do my taxes. I pay for every, if somebody is sewing me a dress, I pay them to sew the dress, whether I wear it or not, doesn't make any difference. So maybe I was naive in that.
No, that's awesome. No, super cool. And thanks for sharing that too. And I know we'll dig into more of that. But Lindsay, I know you help run a team of advisors. And what does your business model look like? And how do you work that?
Yeah, so unlike our friend Elizabeth, we don't charge any fees, and so I've owned the company for just over 12 years now. And when I started, this was people were starting to go online and kind of do research for themselves, and so I had to put myself in a position where I could always compete against the OTA. And the way that I hired a marketing firm, and they said, okay, here's what you have to do. You're not going to be able to charge fees because initially, people think, well, it's going to cost more money to use a travel agent. But if we can prove to them that it costs no more to use a travel agent, then you're gonna establish that rapport. They're gonna keep coming back to you. And so I said, okay, you guys take it away. And so they put this whole plan in place, and it really came down to, we decided we're not going to charge fees, but it came down to consumer education. So when in order to forge that relationship, to build that rapport with our clients, we start a conversation and we say, look, this is what we're going to do for you. But please understand that in moving forward with us, the time that we spend putting this all together, we actually don't get paid unless you book the trip with us. And a lot of times the consumer doesn't know that. And so if you can establish that boundary up front, there's respect that's built, a mutual respect that's built, and people say, oh, okay, I understand. If they're at all thinking about using credit card points or miles, or maybe they're shopping around, it gets them to a place where they say, you know what, thank you for letting me know. I was kind of just shopping around, but I appreciate the time, and we're going to do something else. So that doesn't happen 100% of the time. Sometimes we do have people that walk, but the way that we're successful, in not charging fees is the amount of production that we do, because we don't charge fees and because we are so competitive with the OTAs for that reason. It kind of just balances out. So, like you said, I do run a team of just over 50 advisors now. And with all of their production and the not charging the fees, it's a model that's worked for us.
Yeah. No, that's super awesome. And actually, the second question I was going to ask you both just did is like just how you structure your fees and commission. But just before I move on from that question, just to make sure, was there anything else that just that you might not have mentioned in the first answer of just how you structure your fees or commission? Because I think you both did, but I just want to make sure. I think we're good. Yeah, because that's really important to know before we get into all of the nitty gritty. So that is awesome. So that's why, guys, all the audience on here, like, isn't this awesome? We have these two panelists who have like literally made it work both ways. It's so amazing. And so it's really cool. And what I wanted to do is just talk about, ask you, just really pick your brains like crazy today. But I'm going to start off, I'm going to try to keep it organized in different topics, but I'm sure we'll start to get all over the place. But the first topic that I want to talk about was transparency, because that's kind of the first thing that always comes up when we start talking about fees is how can I make sure, and Lindsay, you brought it up at the beginning too, is just that, when we talk to them, the clients, we let them know like this is how it's working, and same for you, Elizabeth, because your fees is on your website. So it's right out there. So what I really want to talk about is, so first I'll start with you, Lindsay, here is, I know that since that is such a key component to how you keep your business successful is, being very transparent just about everything of how you get paid. And so what does that workflow look like when you're working with a brand new client?
Yeah, so if they call into our office, it's something that we typically tell them up front. And then the agent that is assigned to work with that client will kind of reiterate it either through a phone call that's set up or an email that's set up to just say, hey, I'm going to be working on this request. Just to let you know that it's going to take me a little bit of time. This is how we get paid. So it's just a little blurb that says, hey, this is what this looks like. And it gives them the opportunity to, just understand where we're coming from. If we're putting in a lot of time, then we would just want them to be mindful of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Elizabeth, how about for you? How do you make sure that they understand the fee structure? And also another question on that is, how do you find the right level that you think they should be in?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have honestly never had an issue with, somebody saying, excuse me, oh, you charge a fee. I didn't know that. Again, it's because of maybe my market or where I live. Everyone was used to paying a fee for a service. I went in with such confidence, like, yep, I charge a fee. I never knew that was an option not to. So I think my confidence, when I'm doing a Zoom with a client, I'm like, okay, that's going to be a $500 fee. I don't stutter. I don't, this is what I charge. And like, okay. And you want me to plan your trip? That's how much it costs. If you want to do it yourself, absolutely go for it. So I've never had a problem. It is all on my website. Where it moves a little bit is, if you're going on a weekend trip to Paris, that's a lot different than if you're doing 4 countries for 3 months in a different hotel every night. So on my website, it says fees start at based on the number of people, the duration, the complexity, and the destination. So we'll have an honest conversation. And I do calculate it kind of by hours. Like I'll look at a project. If it's a 2-hour consult or a kickstart, that's the same price no matter what. But then the tier 1 and the tier 2, I'll look at it and I'll say, well, I'm estimating this is going to take me about X amount of hours. I think my time is worth X. And then that's the fee. And then I will give my clients choices and say, if you want to do the kicks, I think you're really struggling with this area of the trip. So I could just take that off your plate and it would be X amount of dollars, whatever, $350. Or I can do all of this, but then you make your own bookings. It'll cost this, or I can do everything start to finish and this is the fee. And then they get to look at it. And sometimes people come back and say, can I mix? Can I have a little bit from here and a little bit from there, like a little menu? And we put together a little a custom plan and I charge the fee, and we're good. Everybody's happy. There's the right price point for everybody.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And you do like just a consultation beforehand? Or
Yes. Yeah. So I have a qualifying form. So first I want to know a little bit about them. And then, yeah, I will sit on Zoom for an hour, almost an hour. I have a 5-page questionnaire that I go through with my clients. I know everything about them, what they want to do, where they want to, I mean, everything. And then I send them a proposal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really important. Either way, you know, it sounds like for both of you, it's like really getting a lot of as much information as you can at the beginning and really sharing all that. And so a question for you, Elizabeth, here is how often would you say have you ever lost a customer due to charging fees, or you have that conversation and nothing
I
happened?
really haven't. And I know that's shocking. And people think, oh, you must lose so much business. And I honestly never have. But I think that's because the people who might have been just tire kickers, they, not really serious, I've already weeded them out because I make them look at my website and these are my rates. And so they've already seen that I charge fees. So it's never a surprise. Like, wait, you charge a fee? I didn't know that. They already know that. And they already know the rough range. So I've never had anybody, I mean, I've had people change their mind. Like I've decided I'm not going on vacation. And there's maybe one or two through the years who have said, oh, I think I can just do it myself. And then they usually come back a month later and they're like, okay, never mind. It's really hard. You can do it. So no.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. And Lindsay, for you, do you have any parts of the process that you have built in just to protect your team from, like Elizabeth said, the tire kickers, if you start to realize that's happening?
I think again, it's just maintaining that level of transparency throughout the conversation. And, we're very upfront. If we know that somebody is coming to us, from another travel agency or having used another travel agent, we say, look, we're not in the business to take, business from other travel agents. If this is a situation where you simply cannot work with them or you're having an issue, then we'll be glad to help you. But we make sure that we get them to understand that we're not just out to get other agents business either. And so it just goes down to having those conversations. I mean, our corporate office is located in West Texas, and while we have clientele all across the states, we are just in the business of having relationships with people, and those conversations are just so important.
They really are. And a quick question for both of you. There's a couple of people asking about, can you share your questionnaires and that? But is that both on your website, or is it on?
No. This is my
This.
I just did
Okay.
one this morning with a new client. Yeah. I mean, if you email me, I guess I could send it to you. Sure.
Yeah. So maybe, yeah, but I can get everybody the hookup. Just send us an email at academy@travify.com. But Lindsay, do you have it on your website, like a form that they would normally be filling out?
So we do have on our website like a lead generation form, and that goes into our system. And then from there, I've got admin people that will assign the leads out to agents. Cool. And but again, I don't have anything listed about, other than we're an elite no fee travel agency. I don't have anything listed about, how we operate or don't operate, because I want to make sure that we're forging that relationship by starting that conversation so that they understand.
Yeah, awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, I know there's going to be a lot of people like, oh, this is great, and we'll try to get you what we can there. But no, that is really cool. Again, this conversation is so helpful. But one thing that I really want to make sure we focus on our topic is changing your business model or giving advice to somebody who is interested, because the big thing that we saw is, well, first of all, there's a lot of new people entering the industry, which is incredible and super awesome. So we've seen that here at Travify, just lots and lots of new agents. But then there's also a lot of people who are who have taken the past couple years as a way to restructure their business and find new things, whether that is charging a fee or not charging a fee. So one thing that I wanted to ask both of you today is, what advice would you give to an advisor just who's thinking about changing their business structure model? Is there any advice in thinking that through, or something they should be aware of? And I'll let either one of you.
I do get this question a lot from advisors who are asking me for advice on how to switch over to, adding fees. And everybody who's done it has been shocked that there's been no backlash, that their clients are like, it's about time you're charging fees. Or, I had a colleague who actually sent out like an e-zine, a newsletter, and said, hey, as you know, I was a no fee agency, but because of the pandemic, let me just explain very quickly how business works. We get paid on commission. So when you don't travel, da, 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 da. And I have now decided that I'll be charging blah, blah, blah. And most people don't care. If you're talking about high fees, they're going to care. But if you're talking about a couple $100s, they're really not going to care. And it's a little bit of a safety net for you. But switching over, it's about the wording and just educate, like Lindsay said as well, it's educating your clients, letting them know that there's commissions involved. And if I don't get the commission, that's, and just being honest about it. And now I'll be charging a fee. The pandemic, and one of my colleagues had a great phrase, and if I think of it later, I'll tell you, but it was something like the pandemic has made us all very aware of, whatever. And so therefore I will now be charging, but she doesn't call it a planning fee. It's a research and advising fee or something. It's like, oh, okay. And clients are like, okay, that makes sense. And really no backlash. Mm-hmm. And frankly, if somebody doesn't want to pay you a couple $100s, they shouldn't be your clients anyway. Sorry, is that controversial? Oh no,
I think it's just, it's something that you have to decide personally for you, whether you're an IC and you work with an agency who kind of gives you free rein to make those decisions, or you, I really have set the model for this team that we're not going to charge fees. But I don't, are we in the place in the conversation where I can kind of talk about how
yes.
we do?
I was literally going to ask you that question after this, so go for it.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the thing, and I think when people use the term fee, to me that means you've had the conversation with the client, you're charging a planning fee, a plan to go fee, whatever you want to call it. There's a line itemization. They're either paying it as part of the invoice or it's coming over in the proposal and it's a set amount and they're paying that to you, and you're putting it in your pocket. Now, we don't charge fees, but what we do, and what I think everybody should take the opportunity to do, is that if you're using a wholesaler, and those prices are less than published rates, that doesn't mean that you can't pad the commission to increase your revenue, as long as you're not sending it over the published price where they say, well, if that's the case, then I can just book it on X, Y, and Z, because they don't really know if we're using bulk air and we've got promos on land. They don't really, all they see online, if they're going and looking themselves, is, it's this amount. They don't know what we're getting it for. So if we can pad that commission a little bit, we're increasing our revenue just by doing that. And it's not really a fee. You're just charging a little bit more for the package and keeping it under the published rate. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I'm glad. I was literally going to ask that, because I was like, that is the that I love that people, especially new agents, to think about, is that there are ways, it's not that you're to miss out on something. There's ways that you can supplement that and your time and effort. And so that's awesome. Because yes, there were people who were asking that question. And I was like, oh, perfect. I need to get to that one.
Absolutely.
So,
if there's a promo code that's available, and I'll tell you, ALGV does promo codes. They all do promo codes. American Airlines Vacations does a promo code all the time. And if you're able to utilize that promo code, and then, so you take it off the price of the package, and then you pad that commission and add the promo code back in, essentially, you're making probably double what you were making in that booking. And so it adds up quite a bit. And it's no more money out of your client's pocket. Now, if you know that they're coming to the table and they've probably done a little bit of research, and they know what they're coming with, and I looked and it's about this price, then it can get a little bit tricky to say, well, okay, especially if they have access to AAV or, whatever. But a lot of times those traditional tour operators, where they don't have access to the bulk air and they don't have access to some of the promos that we have on the back end. They just know that we're saving them money and we're providing the service. And so they're excited about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I have to bring in a comment because even Scott was like, mic drop. Jennifer said that the sales differences between fees versus markups versus commissions, the goals, book them all, and all these, all the different ways. So it really brings in. That's why I was really excited for that, Lindsay, is to, the business mindset of running this business is where can I find those ways, and all those different ways to make this make sense for me, and for the client at the same time, which is really cool. So thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing that. And another question to kind of piggyback on that is okay, this could be a big question, and that many of you have already kind of mentioned before, but what are there any misconceptions on how you approach your business model? Any misconceptions that be good for people to hear?
I don't think so.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
So it's not
mine's
a big
pretty straightforward.
It's been really straightforward with us. No fees are no fees.
Mm-hmm.
So it's we can't really get around that. And it was just one of those branding things that I went with several years ago. And we made it through pandemic, and we're busier than we've ever been before. And I didn't want to backtrack on that. I didn't want to do a complete 180 and have to rebuild the whole brand. So we just stuck with it, and we're gonna keep on keeping on.
Yeah. What works is what works. So that is really good. So one thing that I wanted to just chat about really quick before we get into Q&A, because I really want to give a lot of time for Q&A, because I think that's really where a lot of good stuff is. But I love this question because I know Elizabeth, we were chatting about it, is just the other models that we're seeing in the industry. So forget what we're just talking about, what you both do today, but any other models that you've seen in the industry, that just to get people thinking about ways that not necessarily charging a fee, but doing different things.
I know.
Go.
The
There we
the
go.
one that I am super intrigued by, but I'll never do, are the membership fees. I
Mhm.
love that, where your clients pay an annual membership and then you plan 3 or 4 or 5 trips for them. I think that's really interesting. I don't know how it would work, because what would the membership fee be? And is it, 5 trips? Are they weekend trips? Are they complicated? But I think it's really interesting. And there's some guy that's doing it, but he has he'll only take 10 clients and he charges them $10,000. And it's really kind of cool. I mean, it won't work for me, but I'm intrigued by it.
Yeah, I've heard that one as well, where it's like, it was, so when we had a sales workshop back in, I think it would have been October, Margie Jordan from CCRA was on, and she was sharing that there was someone, it was the same type of thing, where he had 50 clients and he had a wait list. So it was like super high demand. And it's so interesting. And Lindsay, have you heard of any other, heard of agents in the industry doing just different things like that?
Yeah, I've heard of those, a couple of those, more of like a concierge based system. But it's just it's intriguing to me, but it's so foreign to me because our model is still completely different. And, our suppliers and partners are, they're hedging bets on the production that we're doing. And, so it's all about, keeping the numbers going, and it's just a numbers game. And so for us, it's never been about the other side of it, because we just have to keep the production up.
Mm-hmm. To keep it up. Yeah, no, it's really interesting. And I'm curious too, just in the near future, what we start seeing, if there's any, just as a lot of new people start entering the industry, and if like coming out of the pandemic, things change. I'm sure there'll be some things, but just really interesting to chat about. But okay, so what I want to do though is I want to get into Q&A. So it's going to start getting, going to do a little popcorn here, because there's so much. I want to make sure we have at least the last 20 minutes to do Q&A. So Lindsay and Elizabeth, are you ready for this?
We're ready.
Excited. Here we go. Okay. So Lindsay, first one for you here is, how often would you say you lose potential clients that are window shopping and not serious about buying?
Not very often, because we had that conversation with them up front, and say, look, we just expect that, in return for our time, we just expect that you are honest and upfront with us about your intentions. And again, it's all about relationships. By cultivating those relationships, people are typically very honest with us. There are times where they will go off and try to do their own thing, and like has happened with Elizabeth, and they'll come straight back in the door and say, oops, never mind, just kidding. And then at that point, it's our decision whether or not we're going to work with them. And, a lot of times we give people, a second chance, but we do have an agency blacklist. There are people that I will not work with. And it's because they didn't respect our time and energy and effort. And so we cut our losses and we move on, because we don't want to, continue to work with them in the future or really give them another chance. So
Awesome.
doesn't happen very often, though.
That's good. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, business is business, and sometimes it happens, but that's good. It doesn't happen often. It does. So Elizabeth, this question is from Jody, and she said, do you still do those 4 tiers of service? So this question was asked at the very beginning when you were explaining how you do your service fees.
Yes. Yeah. I still do? Yeah. I've always done that.
Yep. Still kept them in there. And yeah. And you can see them on your website.
And I think that gives the client who, and sometimes I will, like when I have a new client and they'll just want the 2-hour consult, that's also, and they'll pay for my 2-hour consult. That's great. And then they'll see the value in what I do. And they'll say, you know what, I think I actually want a tier 2. And then we'll decide if we're going to move forward. Or I often have that. People come to me like, I want your tier 2. I want your tier 2. And then once I meet them, I'm like, you know what? You don't need a tier 2. You need a kickstart. We've got this going. All you need from me is XYZ. Please don't pay me all this money you don't need that. Here's what you need. And so that's why people trust me, because I'm not, trying to sell anything. I will tell you what's best for you. So I love offering those different things, because some people just want a little bit of advice. Some people want a lot, and some people want in the middle, and it's up to them to decide what they want from me.
Awesome. That's cool. And so this question is also to you, Elizabeth, and Lindsay, if any of these make sense for you, feel free to jump in as well. But this question was from Maria and said, how do you make sure the fees you charge are equitable? For example, booking an all-inclusive honeymoon to St. Lucia versus a custom honeymoon 10-day itinerary in Italy.
Oh yeah. So that, like I said, like in the beginning, if somebody comes to me and they say, hey, we want to book a resort in wherever, that is going to be a 2-hour consult. You don't need more from me. That's it. But if you're doing Italy, if you want a 2-hour consult for Italy, I'm only going to be able to tell you what activities to do in Rome in 2 hours. Or that's when the duration, the complexity, the destination, that's where all of that comes into play. And it really comes down to hours of work. To book you a resort in St. Bart's, that's going to take me an hour. That's no big deal. And I wouldn't even charge. If you came to me and said, hey, can you book me Cheval Blanc in St. Bart's? I would not charge you a fee for that. I would just do it, hook you up with Virtuoso, do all that. If you come to me and want, a 3-week vacation in Italy, that's a totally different, and I'm going to calculate my hours. I'm literally going to sit and go. And for the first 2 or 3 years of my business, I actually kept a spreadsheet with every client, and I, almost like a lawyer, I would cling my little timer, and I would log how much time I spent, how long did it take me to look for flights, how much, and at the end of the trip, when they got back, I would have a total. And I mean, some of those first trips, guys, 92 hours. Like, I'm not kidding. I'm not even exaggerating, like 92 hours. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then as I got better and better and better, I know how long it takes me to book a 2-week trip to Italy in 3 destinations. I can calculate it in my brain within a minute. So I know what that fee should be versus a trip to California, a road trip. I know how long that takes me. I specialized in road trips during the pandemic and RV trips, and nobody else could really do that because there were no commissions involved. But because I charged a really high fee, I can do your road trip. But I got to know how long it takes me to plan each type of trip, and I can base my fees on that.
One random question to go off of that I just thought of is, for like when you first started doing that, or for people who are just now starting, is there an easy way to figure out if someone came to you and it's a type of vacation that you haven't really planned before? How do you figure out, is there a way to figure out, I would probably spend this much time? Because I could just see a lot of times happening that if it's a new trip that you're not used to, it might take you way longer than you thought. Or
well,
A
It
method
depends
to it?
if I'm doing something new and I know I'm going to FIT the heck out of it, then I
Mhm.
can calculate it. But if I am going to go through a DMC or a supplier, an on-site, and they're going to be doing a lot of, and I know who I'm going to use, I know it's not going to take me as long. So I can calculate my hours that way.
Okay, cool.
But sometimes, and hey, listen, sometimes the person who says, I just want to book the Cheval Blanc in St. Bart's, I'm like, that's going to take me an hour, ends up taking me 10 hours because they changed their mind 8 times. And, so there's always
True. Yeah.
what looks easy can end up being hard. What looks super hard ends up being, a snap. So there's, it's never a perfect science, but you get used to it over the years.
Yeah. So many caveats depending on, and the good old pandemic the past couple of years really threw more at that. All of this stuff. So a question from Sheila here to both of you is, what are your cancellation fees? So I'm not sure if either of you do that or not, but
I do not.
Yeah, so this is actually a conversation that I had with my leadership team yesterday, actually. And so we're gonna look at maybe creating some different policies moving forward. Some kinds of penalties that it can be difficult because if you're working through the tour operator, you've got to get permission from them. There's a lot of credit card chargeback issues that can, surface with those types of penalty fees or cancellation fees. So legal definitely has to be brought into those conversations, and it's something that I don't want to do anything quick, but I want to be able to trust the client that they're going to travel and that we're going to get paid what we're owed. But in the event that people don't travel, I do want to, moving forward, be able to protect my agent's time. And so it's something that I'm wrestling with. I will never ask for money on the front end. We've already established that we're not asking for money on the front end. But, if you were to go, book your hotel online and you cancel within a certain range, they're going to take money from you. And so we're kicking the idea around. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's a toughie. And I think some advisors are using that in lieu of the fees. They're like, I'm a little more comfortable with that. But then when push comes to shove and the client cancels because they have COVID, and then you want to charge them a fee for that, they feel bad enough. But agreed. If it's somebody that's like, oh, I've decided to cancel because I'm going to book it myself, then, I don't know. Those are tough. Cancellation fees are tough.
Right. And it also comes down to how do you, again, have the conversation of avoiding the cancellation and shifting the dates. So what are the reasons that you're canceling? If that's not a good weekend for you, or we got sick with COVID, okay, let's not cancel it. You've already paid for it. Let's just look at a different set of dates for you to travel. And that way we're able to, keep everything on the books and have the revenue stay the same. So again, it just comes down to, having the right conversations at the right time. And when you become extremely confident in, having the consultation, booking whatever you're booking, and saving the booking if it goes haywire, it's a natural flow.
Yeah. Which is really happening a lot. Well, you just have to be aware of it. We all know we have to be flexible at this point. So yeah, no, really, really interesting on that. One thing that, so someone asked, and apologies I didn't ask this at the very beginning because this is helpful to know. She said, for context, can we hear what each presenter's background is, what their breakdown for travel they sell? So for example, 80% all inclusive. So can you both share what typically you're selling travel wise, or what that looks like?
When? Before the pandemic? During the pandemic?
Good point. Yeah.
So,
answer how you wish.
Okay, so before the pandemic, a lot of mostly Europe, very exotic, Asia. During the pandemic, I became an RV specialist and road trip and domestic specialist. Honestly, I was like the official road trip planner for a couple of RV companies. It was hilarious. Loved it. It was actually so fun. And now I'm going back to my roots, which is a lot of Europe, Asia will become, Japan will be coming soon, a lot of South America, And then a lot of Caribbean. I actually used to say there's 3 things I don't do. I don't do the Caribbean just because I didn't know it. I don't do Disney because that is really hard. Disney is like, you need a PhD. And I don't do cruises. And I still don't do cruises except river cruises, Galapagos. And now I'm like a Caribbean specialist because I had to become one over the last couple of years. And I actually had to hire an assistant to become my Caribbean specialist on my team because I do a ton, and now I'm a Caribbean specialist. So Caribbean is probably like 25% of what I do now, which is crazy, but yeah.
Crazy how it changed.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I have so many advisors, we're full service and we do everything. I would say that we're I started the agency, we were extremely focused on groups and destination weddings, incentive trips. And so that business has just kind of stuck with us, and we've, kind of grown that business over the years. But we do, if you can dream it, we figure it out. So I wish I could give you a breakdown. I haven't pulled reports from this past year, and a lot of that's just because I haven't had time. We've been so slammed. But I would say that if I had to throw, we're not doing a lot of cruising right now just because of what's been going on in the industry with cruising. I think that will pick back up. A lot of my agents are located in Texas, and so cruising is just a big thing out of Houston and Galveston. But because we're also, a lot of my agents are in Texas, Mexico, and the Caribbean is just it's a mass market, easy destination for folks to get to. And so we sell a lot of that. With Europe opening its borders and, vax mandates becoming a little less stringent, and we're seeing some of that loosen up. I think that our sales to Europe are going to skyrocket here pretty quickly. So it's really interesting to kind of see the changes over the last several months. I will tell you that the biggest word, like the word that we've had to use for the last 2 years, is just to adapt, to be adaptable and flexible, if you will. And I've told my agents, from the get-go, look, if we can find a way to shift this, save this, do that, like, let's think on this. Don't make any rash decisions. Don't have conversations with your clients prematurely. Let's figure out how we can, make this work. And so it's just really come down to thinking outside of the box and seeing if we can't find the right fit for people so that we can get them on their way and we can, continue to increase revenue where possible.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And so this other question is, this kind of dips into marketing a little bit, which I love and I don't want to shy away from because it's really awesome. Is Jennifer said, well, first, great discussion. Yes. So, but she said, do you handle new clients who are referrals any differently? But also, how do you promote word of mouth or referrals with existing clients? So again, getting a little marketing-ish, but great question though. So I wanted to ask it. And I'll let either one.
Elizabeth? No?
What exactly is the question? How do we market?
Okay, so it's kind of a 2-part question. Okay, so I'll ask the first one is, do you handle new clients who are referrals any differently?
Do I handle new clients who are referrals any? I have to say almost 80 or 90% of my clients are like referrals. Like, it's a very small world that I have. So do I handle them any different? I would definitely thank the refer. I don't know. I don't think so. No, I don't know.
No, and for us, we just have a process and we go through the process and follow our process, and you're going to be happy. And if you don't listen to us and don't follow our process, we're probably not the right fit for you.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. And then on that though, the second part of that is, do you promote word of mouth referrals with your clients at all? So like after they go on a trip, do you ask for like, oh, here's definitely send them our way, anything like that?
Before they go on their trip, the day they leave, I send them a little email, have a great trip. Please give Souvenir and Far a tag on Facebook, Instagram. And then when they get back, obviously a couple days later, I ask them for some feedback, how'd it go? And then I do have a little link for a Google review if they want to do it, but I don't push it. I don't really like that stuff. So,
Yeah, no.
I'm terrible. I need marketing. I don't do it. I'm terrible. Nobody does my Instagram. I do it myself. Like I need some help in that area. So don't ask me about marketing.
And for us, because we don't charge fees, that's just part of the conversation that we have that says, hey, look, we're not charging you a fee to do this, but if you'll send any of your, friends or family our way, we would love to help them out. And, that's really the best compliment that you can give us. So we definitely do ask, for Google reviews and, tags and things like that.
Yeah, nope, that's awesome. That's really cool. And so since we're kind of coming up on time, I guess my last question just for you both is and I know that you kind of did this at the beginning, but any advice that you'd give just when people are deciding what to do? I mean, if anything, this pandemic has really just shown, made people take a second look at their business model or made them take another look and say, it's doing great the way it is. Is there any last just advice that you would give at all? I'll let either.
Lindsay?
To say, whether you're going to charge fees or you're not going to charge fees, be extremely consistent, create a process, stick with your process, so that people can come to know that process as their repeat clients. There's no surprises, if you will, and they're going to come to respect you. Be confident about the decisions that you're making. If you're coming to the table like Elizabeth is, and you're asking for a $2,000 planning fee, be confident in that because you know what you're worth, you know what your time is worth, and you've got to get paid. On the flip side of that, if you're not going to charge a fee and we're equally as confident over here that we're going to have that relationship with our clients and we're going to give them a reason to not want to go anywhere else. And so, by creating that relationship. So it comes down to consistency and just being confident, I think. And that's with anything in business. Anything in life, really. And so that's kind of my 2 cents.
And transparency. Add the word transparency to it. Exactly. Like Lindsay said, she tells her clients, this is how we make money on your commissions. Be honest and transparent. Don't hide anything. And if you're going to go for the no fee model, that's great, but explain to your clients. So, because, I have found that clients don't know that there's a commission. And so they don't know that when they just canceled their trip that you just lost $1,000. They don't know that. And if they knew that, that might make a little different conversation. So like she said, just be confident, transparent, stand by your business model and do it.
Here on that. I love that. Transparency and confidence. Perfect.
And consistency.
And consistency. 3 things. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Don't go back and forth. Don't go back and forth and test this and test that. Because then your clients don't know where you stand. Be very, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But saying that with a consistency, if you need to tweak it a little bit, that's okay too. That is okay.
Don't flip flop. Like let's pick a side, whatever team you want to be on. Elizabeth, Lindsay, that's fine. Pick a side. And
you can do both.
Yeah, you could do a mix.
You can do both and charge lower fees. And that, enough fees so that you feel like if they cancel the trip, you'd still get maybe $10 an hour. That's fine too.
Sure, absolutely.
That's fine.
Absolutely. But if you're going to, again, it goes back to, if you're going to charge the fee. Don't be timid in asking for that. Say, this is what my fee structure is. This is, this is what you're agreeing to, and go with it. And I think that's where I've seen a lot of my colleagues in the industry really struggle with charging fees initially, because they're so timid in doing it. And I say, listen, if you're going to do, I have a 4-year-old son at home, and I'm like, listen, if you're going to do it like you're a 4-year-old in a Batman t-shirt. I mean, because you just got to do it. And so, we kind of laugh about that. But I think either way, there's no right or wrong way. It's what feels comfortable to you. I think a lot of it is geographically based too. We didn't talk about that, but I have brick and mortar offices around the country. So we're not just in West Texas. I've got an office in Cincinnati. I've got, a team in Dallas. I've got a team in Houston. I've got, building teams up in the Minneapolis area, Philadelphia, Kansas City. And my teams of agents in those areas deal with objections. I have to deal with overcoming objections a little bit differently because of the consumers in that area. And so, it's made for really interesting conversations within the team as we continue to grow and how we maneuver and how we do things, which is oddly enough why we had the cancellation, penalty conversation just yesterday, and why we're going to, look at tweaking that. But a lot of this is geographically based as well. And so I think you just have to, do a little bit of market research. What are your, I don't want to say competitors, there's so much business to go around for all of us in this industry. But what are some of your colleagues doing, in the area that you're, selling to, and, kind of figure that out and see if you can, take that information and kind of build that into your model. If they're really successful at it, then chances are you're probably going to be too. If they're not so successful at it, either they're doing it the wrong way, or it's just not a market that's going to be, super, or they're not going to like the idea, or, I'm kind of fumbling on my words here. But, I think you have to know your audience. You have to know who you're selling to.
Mm-hmm. That is so
What
important.
what you're selling. So if you're selling, a lot of cruises, it's a little harder. But if you're selling FIT, really complex safaris and that, then it's a different conversation. Agreed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That is so important. And I'm like, why did I not think of that question at the very beginning of that? Is so important to think about, is the geographic, and also just what are you selling? What are you focusing on? Yeah. Oh, so smart. See, I'm so glad that I just asked you one more question just to see, because it's just so much great expertise. And I know this was like the fastest hour of my life. This was really fast. I was just looking at the clock and we have reached it. But this has been really great. And I'm sure we'll have this conversation again. Maybe it'll be a yearly webinar, who knows? But it's just so interesting just to hear what other people are doing in the industry, and then how, making the decisions that will work best for you and your business. And so thank you so much, Lindsay and Elizabeth, for sharing that and spending the hour with us. We really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You.
Yeah, and thank you everybody else. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and rest of your Wednesday. And feel free, again, email us at academy@travify.com if you have questions. And then we'll get this recording up on our YouTube channel in just a couple hours as well. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.